Deputy Chief of Police Jeff Clark. Jeff, conventional spelling, J-E-F-F, Clark, C-L-A-R-K. Deputy Chief Clark will make a couple of opening remarks. We'll then play the video, at which, when the video is finished, we will accept your questions. After we finish the questions, we will play the video back on the screen without interruption. So during his remarks, he may request that I pause the screen so that he can make some remarks, but at the end, we will either send it to you via Dropbox link or we'll give it to you on flash drive. Okay, hold on just a sec, yeah.
We ready? Good afternoon, guys. My name is Deputy Chief Jeff Clark. I am the Deputy Chief of Operations for the Athens-Clarke County Police Department. And the reason why you guys were invited to the police department today was to discuss. I'm going to discuss the release of the video involving the incident, officer-involved shooting that took place on April 20th, and give you guys some understanding of why the officer took the action that he did on that day. After that, I will open it up for questions, but do understand that this case is being actively investigated by the GBI, so I do not want to distract from their investigations. Before I get into the videotape, I just want to extend my condolences to the family of Mr. Brooks, who was the deceased person involved in this case. Certainly my prayers are with the family during this time, and I also likewise want to extend the same thing to the officers that were involved. Understand they are, the officers that were involved are under a lot of stress during this time. So without further ado, I will get into the facts of the case. At approximately 11:40 p.m. on Saturday, April 20th, the Athens-Clarke County Police Department responded to a peeping Tom call at a residence on Hull Road. When ACCPD units arrived, they spoke with a victim of the peeping Tom who identified the suspect in this case. ACCPD officers made contact with the suspect, who was later identified as 63-year-old Carlton Brooks at his nearby residence, which was 1249 Hull Road. After making contact with Mr. Brooks, an officer-involved shooting occurred. Mr. Brooks brandished a firearm, that being a shotgun, and pointed the weapon at one of our officers. That officer is identified as 31-year-old Ethan Marsden. Our officer, fearing for his life, fearing for his safety of not only him but another officer that was with him, fired his weapon. As a result of firing the weapon, Mr. Brooks was shot by our officer, who later rendered aid. After rendering aid, EMS responded to the scene, and Mr. Brooks was transported to a local hospital where he was pronounced deceased. Now we'll get into the portion where we play the video. At this time, as you can see, the officer was just pointed in the direction of the peeping Tom suspect, where he attempted to make contact with the suspect in that case. The officer goes about getting the attention of Mr. Brooks. Stop it right there, Jeff.
Yep.
If you would, rewind it back just a little bit. If you can see a backlight, this is the officer illuminating himself. As you can see, it's dark, So the officer is illuminating himself with his flashlight just to identify that he is a police officer at this time. You can continue.
Technology.
Technologies.
Sorry, guys.
All right, so as soon as we get the video back up and running, I will finish narrating.
Let's just start.
We won't stop it anymore.
Let's just start from scratch here. Sorry.
Again, watch for the backlight where the officer illuminates himself, just to show Mr. Brooks that he is a police officer.
Hey, sir, come to the door.
That's the illumination right
Come to the
there.
door. Athens Police Department, sir, come to the door.
Officer then proceeds to knock on the door to get Mr. Brooks outside. Can you stop it right there, Jeff?
Sir, put the weapon down.
Now, understand the officer just identified Mr. Brooks as having a weapon. But if you look around the area, you don't see, one of the things officers usually take in a situation like this is what's called cover and concealment. If you look around, there's nowhere, no cover, no concealment, so the officer just retreats. Okay.
Put the weapon down. Sir, is that a weapon?
Now, you will see the door open, and quickly, the officer
So what are you
identifies
doing?
him with a
Put that down.
shotgun.
Put that down.
Officer fires 2 shots to the torso
Put the
of
gun
Mr.
down.
Brooks. And we have slowed it down for you. What you will see is the shotgun down at the low ready position, and he will raise that shotgun towards the officer. One more frame. Right there is when he raised it at the officer. They have collected the shotgun for ballistics. They are doing an independent investigation, so I do not know.
So basically, you all are saying the shooting was justified because he threatened the officer?
It is my opinion that this shooting was justified. Of course, I don't want to influence the GBI's operation or investigation, but based on the law, the officer was protecting himself and not only him, another officer from a serious threat.
Had you all responded to this man before?
There were some other calls that were at this location, but not during the same night.
Can you go into what happened on the Peak and Tom? Did he actually go to the woman's house, look through a window, what happened there?
During the Peep and Tom, basically it was through her window. He had binoculars peeping out through his windows to her window.
So he was in his house looking at her?
Yes,
With binoculars?
yes.
And she's a neighbor, has she had problems with him before?
Yes, there had been some other problems, some issues and concerns that arrived earlier to this date.
Were they similar issues?
I do not have the answer to that, to know if they're similar as far as in peeping Tom, but there were different issues.
But she's the one that called you this night.
Yes, yes.
And he was shot how many times?
He was shot twice, in the torso.
How long had the officer been with the department?
I would say under 3 years. I don't have the exact date on when he was hired, but, relatively a new officer, under 3 years.
Has
So-
anybody offered an explanation for his, Mr. Brooks' behavior that night?
No.
He was in that home alone? I'm asking.
Yes, he was. The officers, after rendering aid, they cleared the house, and he was the only one in the house. Yes.
What do you say to the public in situations like this? Because, you know, we're a state where people, so many people have guns, and it's legal to have a gun in your home. What do you say to those folks?
You really have to be careful whenever a police officer arrives at your house and you have a weapon. You need to have that weapon either at the low ready and be willing to discard that weapon at any time, and never, ever bring that weapon above low ready.
Was that the front door or the back door of the home?
That was the front door. I'll take a few more questions. That's it.
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
Are we just gonna play it one more time, or?
Yes, so if you guys, do you want to move in or are you all good?